Hi, my name is Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, Savage Reads. I have some books I want to talk about, another one of my normally scheduled book wrap-ups, talking about some of the books that I've read recently, but let's do one of my crafting updates. I'm still working on this sweater. It is going to take me a long time. This bramble stitch is a little more complex. It takes a little bit more work, and so I'm still just on the piece for the back of the sweater. So this is as far as I've gotten. I still need to go a little longer and shape the shoulders, but if you look up close, I think the texture is really pretty. And so I'm very excited about how the sweater is turning out, but it is a project that is going to take me quite a bit longer than a lot of my projects typically would. We have suddenly had it get hot again here, and I have just been sweating, which has not gone along well with my new obsession of the little steam cleaner that I bought. It's not one of those that's for cleaning carpets, really. It's one of those steam jet ones to clean off baseboards, and you can clean windows with it, and I am having way too much fun with that. But those are some of the things going on in my life, and let's jump into what I read the last week. The first book that I want to talk about was a recommendation from Tiffany at Towering TBR. So make sure to check out her channel down below. And this is a memoir called Women We Buried, Women We Burned by Rachel Louise Snyder. Now, Snyder is a world reporter talking about domestic violence. And this book talks about her childhood, her mother's passing, her father's descent into extremism, and their fraught relationship, and how it has affected her in her life. So you get this backstory and then a little bit about her reporting and her travels. Now, the book really focused on her younger years, her early adulthood, and really finding herself. I thought this book was a well-done memoir, but I also didn't find anything in it that really stood out to me that was memorable. Coming back a week later to talk about this book, I just don't know if I found anything super impactful that has stuck with me even over the past week, but I think it was well done, and if you really connect strongly to some of these subjects, you may find it to be a little more meaningful. But overall, it was a very well done and well written memoir. You could see how her past influenced how she sees the world and her current work, and I thought it was well done. It's about a 4 out of 5 stars. 4 because I really liked it, but not 5 because I don't think it's going to be one of my favorite memoirs even of the year. But I do think it was a very solid read. Now, Melinda at A Web of Stories recommended the book Red Rabbit by Alex Grecian. This book says, a folk horror epic about a ragtag posse that must track down a witch through a wild west beset by demons and ghosts, and where death is always just around the bend. We have a bounty on the witch's head. We have a mysterious mute child who is part of a ragtag bunch of people that are going to collect this bounty on the witch. And you get ghosts that are in and out of the story. You get creepy towns. You get demons. It is fun, fast-paced, creepy, has a little bit of depth in places, and I think overall this was really well done. The only reason that I didn't like this is it has one of my own personal icks. Anything that touches on cannibalism makes me way too nauseous, and I don't want to come back to this, and there was too much of that in this. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that there are elements throughout this book of cannibalism, and so if that is a no for you, maybe you want to avoid it. But for me, who I don't typically go towards a Western, I thought this was a really fun way to have a Western and a horror. I think this was a really well put together book. It was really solid, really fun, but I do think my enjoyment was definitely affected by my nausea at some of the events. Now, Scott at Gunpowder Fiction and Plot recommended the book Masquerade by O.O. Sangoyomi. And I'm going to read the description on this one. It says, Adodo's hometown of Timbuktu has been conquered by the warrior king of Yoruba land. Already shunned as social pariahs, living conditions for Adodo and the other women in her blacksmith guild grow even worse under Yoruba rule. Then Ododo is abducted. She is whisked across the Sahara to the capital city of Sangote, where she is shocked to discover that her kidnapper is none other than the vagrant who had visited her guild just days prior. But now that he is swathed in riches rather than rags, Ododo realizes he's not a vagrant at all. He is the warrior king, and he has chosen her to be his wife. In a sudden change of fortune, Ododo soars to the very heights of society. But after a lifetime of subjugation, the power that saturates this world of battle and political savvy becomes too enticing to resist. As tensions with rival states grow, revealing elaborate schemes and enemies hidden in plain sight, Ododo must defy the cruel king she has been forced to wed by reforging the shaky loyalties of the court in her favor, or risk losing everything, including her life. Now, this book says that it is loosely based on the myth of Persephone, and I don't think you should even go into this thinking that it is loosely based on the myth of Persephone. I think the only way that you really get that is you have a woman who is kidnapped and made to marry someone, and maybe you have a slight parallel with the whole pomegranate eating in the underworld thing. But overall, this is a very separate story. And the book itself is actually pretty fun. You get that romance, action, and adventure, and it is gripping. And what I really liked about this is it had a lot of discussions about women's choices and women's value. And I think this was just really excellent for a lot of that. I loved this book. I loved how it all worked out. I thought some of the stuff in it was very devastating, but so compelling, and it just was really well done. The only reason I don't give this a 5-star perfect book, I loved it, is that it did fall into that problem where you have the main character thrown into a new situation where she knows nothing, and she picks it all up too fast and is better than everyone else, right? I don't really like that as a plot device. Why is this girl who grew up in a blacksmithing community somehow better at military strategy than all these generals? And I'm not saying that she couldn't have gotten there. I just think the steps from where she started out to where she ended up maybe didn't have as much of a clear path as I would hope. I do think that that leaves the book feeling a little juvenile and a little, oh, well, she's just the chosen one. Of course she can magically do all of this. But I don't think that that was the tone of the whole book. And so it did feel a little disjointed that way. That was my little pet peeve with the book. But you know what? I didn't care because overall I really enjoyed it. This is characters and settings that I don't see very often, and the way that the characterization was, I think that you might find some of these characters very unlikable, but you're gonna also find them very compelling at the same time. Even if you don't agree with the decisions, you understand who they are as people. I do highly recommend this book. I just think there were some elements that could have been a little better. This next book was a recommendation from the channel Raspberry Reads, and it is Western Lane by Chetna Maru. And this book is short. If you want something easy and quick to get through, this is a great one for that. This book is following our 11-year-old protagonist, and she has a bunch of sisters. Her mom dies, and her dad starts training her in squash. This book is very interesting because the characters use squash as both a way to process and a way to avoid dealing with grief. And this is talking about our main character's relationship with her father and what their relationship does after the death of her mother and what happens with her relationship with her family. I thought this book was good for how short it was, but I do think because it was so short, the author didn't take the time to really explore some of those inner feelings. It was left very ambiguous on how the characters felt, how they were dealing with things. We as the audience had to make a lot of inferences about how everyone was feeling and coping and processing, which is fine if it didn't start feeling a little bit like a monotonous game of squash the whole time instead of actually dealing with the difficult feelings. I thought this was good for how short it was, but I just left feeling like I needed something a little more from it. I think there was something missing in its impact. Maybe it needed some distance, have the characters age a little and be able to reflect on that time. But we are really only given this little snapshot that is shown in this novel. And so I thought this book was all right, but I did think something was missing from it and it needed maybe a little more. Now, that is what I have read the past week or so. I will be back soon with another book wrap up. If you have any book recommendations for me, please let me know in the comments down below. I always need more books on my list. I swear right now, I have 100 books on my TBR and none of them are available at the library. I always need more recommendations to read while I wait for the holds at the library. So if you have any good books that I should read, let me know in the comments down below and I am very likely to pick them up. And thank you for watching. I will see you all on the next one.